Yeah, well, good morning, Tim. That's right. I mean, quite a significant step tonight by the British Prime Minister to essentially shut down all pubs, restaurants, nightclubs and gyms right across the country in an effort to try and really stem the outbreak of this COVID-19 coronavirus. It's worth noting that he had been, up until now, advising people to stay away from pubs and restaurants, but had stopped short of actually implementing a law to prevent them doing that. Well, he took that step tonight, and you might be able to see behind me sort of pubs like this one would normally be packed on a Friday night here in London with people after work wanting to have a pint, but there's only a few stragglers here essentially getting a few last drinks in before the shutters come down completely.
Were people heeding the original advice?
Well, the advice really is for people to try and stay at home as much as they can to try and prevent all unnecessary outings to places like shops. The UK rules contrast somewhat what's going on in Europe, where France and Italy and Spain have had more stringent measures in place, actually having police on the street, doing spot checks on people to have to justify why they're out. The UK isn't going that far yet, but schools have been closed from today, and as I say, the advice from the Prime Minister is for everyone to stay at home as much as they can to try and really get a handle on the spread of the coronavirus.
Prime Minister Boris Johnson, his rhetoric is always upbeat, confident, that's his style. He has also come out and said that they can turn the tide against coronavirus in the next 12 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the message from him and his health minister has been the more that people lock down now, then the less time that Britain will be gripped in this kind of weird quarantine period where you can't come or go from your house without good reason. There is a real push here to get people to stop going out. As I say, he did advise people to stay away from pubs this week, but just walking around London, a lot of people were not adhering to that message. They were still going out for dinner, still going out having drinks, and it's those small gatherings of 50, 60 people inside pubs that really has health experts worried, because they say it's in those closed environments that this disease really can spread quite rapidly. As you say, he is normally quite an upbeat politician, but we have seen in recent days he's taken quite a serious tone. He's always flanked by the Chief Medical Officer here, who is offering quite sober advice for people about what to do. And just to give you a picture of how serious it's becoming here in London, quite a major hospital in the north of the city declared a critical incident today. They said they've run out of ICU beds and places for sick patients, and they're now trying to offload patients to other hospitals. That's a picture that health experts are worried could replicate itself across the city as more people get infected.
Trent, what's the mood like? I mean, London, of course, where you are, is a city that has been known for being stoic, the Blitz and more recently terrorism.
Yeah, well, I mean, the main thing is, I mean, in some ways people want to keep going. They want to try and go about life as much as they can. But obviously with these rules, it's quite difficult to do that. I think you kind of saw a bit of an animated character there behind me before, trying to get a few drinks in before the pubs close. But I mean, really, the reality is, with the numbers rising in the UK, and I think we're up to 177 people now that have died for the disease, the message is starting to trickle through that it's not a game. It's not about sort of having a stiff upper lip and trying to carry on with life as normal. This is different, and the Blitz-like spirit has been thrown around here a little bit, of course, with reference to World War II, but it's a different type of Blitz-like spirit. It's not about coming out on the streets and joining forces to try and beat things together. It's about doing it in isolation, away from other people.
Trent, you're an Australian yourself. You would have heard some of the drama in aisles at shopping supermarkets here. Look, a lot of it's been over the top. The Prime Minister has spoken quite sternly to the Australian public about stop hoarding. Have we seen any of those moments, incidents, where you are?
Yeah, we certainly have. I mean, there has been panic buying across the UK. The three major supermarket chains here have implemented rules in the last 48 hours, limiting people to only being able to purchase 3 of the same item. I noted Scott Morrison had very strong words for Australians, telling them to stop it. Well, those were words that were replicated over here as well. Several ministers have had the same message for Britons. Things like toilet paper, other perishable goods have really disappeared off the shelves, and of course, like Australia, it's vulnerable people here, the elderly, that are now going to the supermarkets and finding that the essentials they need are just not there. The British supermarkets are saying there's more than enough food to feed the country here. Panic buying isn't necessary, but of course these are very uncertain times, and with that uncertainty people are kind of resorting to some extreme action, like trying to buy up as much pasta or toilet paper or tinned tuna as they can.
Yeah, pretty important global message to try and help those that are vulnerable and try and listen to the governments right at the moment. Now, the reports today also, France may extend the lockdown.
Yeah, absolutely. We heard from French President Emmanuel Macron. It was on Monday night over here. He gave an address to the nation from the presidential palace, and it actually broke the viewing records in France. Some 35 million French citizens tuned in, and he didn't mince his words. He said it was time to take the disease seriously. He was disappointed with Parisians who went out over the weekend against the advice of the government, and he brought in very strict rules. Police and military on the streets over there right across the country, and if you are caught outside of your home, you have to have a piece of paper with you, essentially an affidavit explaining what it is you're doing, whether you're going to the supermarket, going to the pharmacy, or going to work in some essential jobs. That's okay, but if you're out just having a wander and not really being confined to your home as you're meant to be, you can be issued with a fine of about 50 euros, so about 100 Australian dollars. So they're really taking it seriously. Of course, for France, they're looking east to their neighbour Italy, which is just carnage at the moment. They cannot get a control of the disease there, and the French are really trying to do all they can to prevent that scenario replicating itself over in their country.